I'm excited to be headed to San Diego on November 4th and 5th this year for the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit. This event always brings together the best in talent acquisition, recruiting leaders, HR executives, HR tech, people that are really shaping where this industry is going. It's more than just a pitch fest. I mean, this is where actual learning comes in. They've been around for 30 years. It's a great event at San Diego in November. And you're going to have some excellent speakers, demonstrations. We have pin.com there. Joel Loudry will be there. You'll have the team from ERE there, Jim Stroud. These are people that have been shaping the industry this decade and really where it's going in terms of AI and the blend with AI and recruiters and all that good stuff. I went in April this year and it was a transformative experience. We had a great time with Digital Recruiter booth and speaking and just people learning about automation and content and AI tools. It was just really cool event. So I'll be an official content partner representing Digital Recruiter. So we're going to be capturing videos, doing man on the street, interviewing the speakers, the sponsors, really getting a pulse on the action. So if you're in talent acquisition, if you're agency recruiter, this is the place to be on November 4th and 5th. Go meet your peers in person, learn from them. There's virtual tickets, there's in-person events. It's an awesome time. And so please enjoy our ERE podcast series so it gets you a glimpse of all the people that are going to be at ERE, and we'd love to see you there. All right, welcome to another episode of the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit series, podcast series. I'm your host, Clark Wilcox, founder of Digital Recruiter, and I have a very special guest, a longtime member of the ERE community, Kevin Grossman. He is the vice president of CandE Benchmark Research at Survale, and they do a ton with CandE experience, and most importantly, they are one of the main gold sponsors at the conference this year. So, Kevin, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Clark. Appreciate it. Good seeing you again.
Likewise. Yeah, we met back in April. Looking forward to seeing you again in November at this conference. Absolutely. And I know you've been kind of officially in this role with Survale. I know you've worked with them for a while. But give us a little bit of a breakdown and more of a background.
So the program that I have been running, and I've always called it a program, is called it's Candidate Experience Benchmark Research and Awards, because we give away awards too. And so we've been doing this now for 14 years. In fact, next year is the 15th year, and we're known as the Candies in the space, which is a cute name, and I can't take credit. I can't take credit for that, but CandE is just short for Candidate Experience, which is how we've always been known. So every year we've worked with hundreds of companies, big and small across industries, helping them better understand how their recruiting process from pre-application to onboarding impacts their candidate experience, and ultimately the impact on the business from the candidate's perception of fairness and their overall sentiment. Do I want to continue to engage this business and brand or not going forward? And majority, as we know, most people don't get hired in any job search on the average. So that is the bulk of our research is kind of as a reality check too on what the experience is really like for mostly not hired candidates.
I'm assuming there's no interest or no business going at all right now, right? No, I'm just kidding. This is like the number one thing going on right now with AI and everything else. And so I know you guys are super busy. I don't want to interrupt you. You got some, I could tell you got to add.
I was just going to, you're probably going to ask me about this, but I mean, it is, it's rough out there.
Yeah.
Right now. I mean, one of the things I've been telling the companies this year in their data reviews, those companies that participated in our research this year, in recent memory, in fact, I go back 25 years to the dot-com bust, to the mortgage crisis, the Great Recession, and to COVID and the impact. Yeah. This is the worst candidate market in a long time. And it is especially true for salaried professionals to management to senior leadership. Yeah. It's just a really rough market, and not just in the US, globally. There is a lot more folks looking for positions that aren't there anymore. Companies hiring has cooled dramatically. And while there's still hiring going on. I mean, healthcare has been still known as the job creator. But there's still a lot of replacement hiring. It's not necessarily all net new, and it's just a rough market right now. So I think, and employers are feeling it in our research, even those that have high ratings, there's a lot more what we call candidate resentment that's out there today
Yeah.
than there's been since the history of our program.
So the thought that, and I don't know if that's altogether right, like it's talked about enough. I think that backs up what we see on LinkedIn, on X,
Mm.
on everything else, and conversations that you have with people and us being in the industry. But so it's easy to bash on. I think we know that a lot of people overlook it, and it's not a bit of priority, like the canned experience that is. But I kind of want to ask, like, in a market like this, where maybe some industries maybe have the advantage, they feel like, okay, we can get what we need. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why is it important, like, kind of no matter the economy, to be focused and to have a good candidate experience, even if you're not
So
going to hire these people right now? Yeah.
right. And, so one of the things that I've been saying probably more this year than I can remember in recent memory is that, well, first of all, the experience that any candidate has, hired or not, impacts their willingness to try again, to apply again, to refer others,
Yeah.
to be a customer if you're a consumer based business, to be a brand advocate, period, at the end of the day. But the reality is that from an employer's perspective, that the job of the TA team is to find, and working with the hiring managers too, of course, to find and to screen and to interview and to make offers to and to hire those people who are helping to grow and sustain the business. That is their job.
Yeah.
That's always that, and that means that we're going to be saying no to a hell of a lot more people over time, which it stinks, but that's the reality. So I always have said we're kind of in the business of no in recruiting because we're saying no a lot more. So that adds up over time. Now, companies, they need to focus on who they're hiring for, again, for their business. But the experience, if I felt like, hey, I'm bummed that I didn't get the offer or I didn't go any further, but you know what? You were fair. The recruiters were clear with me. They followed up with me. The hiring manager I got some feedback, which is not something that a lot of candidates get. I mean, all of these things, then I'm like, I will continue to engage you. So that ultimately is the case. Now, there are those, Clark, who, of course, remember a long time ago when there was a lot of news reporting around how toxic the Amazon culture was,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's still a lot of people who work at Amazon and who still want to work at Amazon. And at the end of the day, if you want to work for that company and that brand, you're going to find a way to try to get in, right? You're going to still apply. But there are those who then will say, I just won't do anything again with that company, regardless of who it was, that because it was such a horrible experience and I'm just not going to do it again. And that starts a ripple effect, because I'm going to tell my friends, the people close to me, don't ever apply at company X. They stink, man. It's a horrible experience. And it just starts playing out. And that's what our data shows. And we've seen year after year in overall. And there is a percentage of candidates who say, I'm never going to do anything with you again. And it can have a potential impact on the business, because that's what we're talking about in our research and data.
Yeah.
You still have to hire the people that you need to hire. That's what you do. But and I would argue that a better experience from pre-application onboarding also translates into a better selection experience for everybody, including the candidate and the hiring manager. And I've been asking a lot of companies this year, how many of them have mandated interview training for hiring managers? And it's kind of a mix across the board, but they're a big, big, big impact at the point of interview and beyond. And they should understand what the data looks like. They should understand what the experience is, and they need to be a part of that equation.
Yeah. Why do you think this gets overlooked or not as much attention? Right, to your point, the hiring managers with how to interview, and like just different things like that. Like, yeah, go ahead.
I think it depends on. I think more companies, at least the ones we work with, there are more companies that are trying to change that and provide resources, training, whether it's a video or an interview guide or mandated annual training, whatever that is, because they do understand that they have a big impact on also candidates that they don't want to lose because of a bad experience. I mean, the number one negative reason why candidates withdraw from the recruiting process, they tell us every year, is because their time was disrespected during interviews and appointments primarily. And so if that's the case, then that's why companies have been working on more and more to mitigate that kind of disruption during the process. Everybody does it a little bit differently. I did talk to a company this year. This was a new one for me that has much smaller hiring volume overall at the end of the day, but they literally have a team approach per search for how they're going to manage the interview process for hiring manager, recruiter, anybody involved. They do it per search. That's not usual though, because you can't scale that. It's hard to scale that.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. But it is important, and more. I would argue more companies are providing those resources to their hiring managers to make it a better experience.
Good. It's I'm thinking back to my Aerotech days interviewing. I think I kind of just learned from the other account managers that just sat in. I wouldn't say there was formal training, except for the fact that I did hundreds of candidate screens and got used to interviewing people that way. But I'm trying to think, if I didn't have that recruiting background, it'd be completely out of left field for me.
Right. That's true. That's
right. And so there is a little bit of that. In terms of like the time being disrespected, what's typically like the first thing or two you look at or tell companies to look at? If that's like what the data is telling you, like the number one issue candidates experience have, what's kind of the quickest ways to fix that or to look at fixing that?
Well, first, let me be clear though that in our data, it's really in the aggregate data year after year, it's only about 2 to 4% of all the candidates who tell us they withdrew. So it's a really small, tiny group overall.
Yeah.
But related to your question, though, is there are some key things that we would argue companies should do. And the first one is timely dispositions. So the highest rated companies in our research try to target 3 to 5 days. So that's that's post application. Yeah. Or even across stages too, within 3 to 5 days. If you know you're not going to pursue somebody, let them know. 1 to 2 weeks max. We've had too soon is too soon too. Like if you were dispositioning an hour after they've applied, I would argue that's too soon. If you are doing it months later, that's too late, way too late. Even if you're a company that does mass disposition in the ATS, when I get on the timely bandwagon, I mean, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, basically, because you could have at the application stage, it's not really the fun for candidates. I mean, even though it's easy to apply these days, most candidate companies it's super easy to apply. But if I'm dispositioned right after that, the backlash now is AI did it. You're screening me out with AI, and although we have more companies that are starting to use AI screening tools at the point of application, most aren't still, not right now. But so timely dispositions, yes, but also trying to mitigate that misconception that AI is doing this. So constantly reminding the candidates at any stage and on the career site, humans are making the final decisions. That may or not make a difference, especially now. Like I've been telling companies, the AI train has left the station and it ain't coming back. Yeah. It'll never come back. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that it's going to be messy, though, in the next few years to come. It's going to be messy for recruiters, for hiring managers, for the candidates, for companies to try to figure out, make sure they're being compliant in what they're utilizing and fair to candidates and all those things. But so timely dispositions, trying to emphasize that humans are making final decisions, a structured screening and interview process that's consistent across job types is super helpful and for the candidates as well as for the selection process, I would argue. Timely offers are always important. And what happens between offer and new hire day. So post offer acceptance pre day one, Are they being engaged by their hiring manager? Are they getting to know the company besides paperwork and all that stuff that you're going to do anyway? So across the candidate journey, there are lots of things that relate to time and communication and feedback that help the process, especially when you're saying no to most along the way. But the timeliness is always critical. Offering feedback to finalists always is a benefit that we see in our data and research every year, because that's a positive. So those are some of the kind of the big picture things that companies can work on, and these are all things mostly under their control, I would argue. I think that companies also, when it comes to this positioning, companies the team controls the dials on the system they use, the ATS, whatever that is. You don't schedule the disposition rejection note to go out at midnight, because humans aren't doing that at midnight, right?
Yeah.
And it's just feeding the belief that, again, no human is reviewing me. So schedule them. I mean, there's just little things that you can do and change that help to reduce some of the resentment that we see in the data. But it's harder. It is harder, though. I will say this, in a market such as today. It's harder in a market when there are way more candidates looking for jobs than are available to help that. But those things are important. And again, what's happening? Are you prepping the candidates before the interview? Is their post follow-up consistent and timely as well when you're dispositioning? Because you're still going to say no to people even after the interview. All of those things make the biggest differences, and gives the candidate a feeling that, whether it's an hourly position or a senior leadership position, that, hey, I may want to engage this business again.
I think it's huge. I think the timeliness. I think the feedback for finalists is a great distinction, because from how do I give it to everyone versus the people that were in the final round. I think there was a reason they made it to the final round. I think that's a really good line and boundary. I hired for one of the roles I hired for this year about 6-7 weeks ago. It was interesting. The firm that helped me set everything up had me do a group interview with 5 people at once. And for more like a sales producer role, and it was an incredible exercise to actually really help me understand who to hire. But I gave them all feedback within 24 business hours.
That's great.
Did a one-on-one and all that, and it was like an email, like, hey, like, loved learning about you and this and all that, like, moving forward with someone else. If you want to talk about the feedback or anything like that, I'm happy to set up a phone call. Right. And kind of do it that way. And it kind of found a good line. And it turns out my first hire was my second pick, and I didn't go with my gut, and then had a chance to kind of write that decision a couple weeks later. And it was just like, oh, no, trusting my gut, because to your point, the process revealed it. My human error, my brain went, instead of my gut, and I was able to pivot. I think because of the way I was able to give the feedback. That person was happy to start, and he's doing an incredible job. I think so. To your point, I've lived that experience of just if you do it that way, it will work out, and you have the opportunity to have things work in the right direction, or work out. Listen. You could again. I tell companies this every year. You could deliver the greatest white glove concierge candidate experience in the world, and at the point you tell somebody no, on average, statistically, it will always skew to negatively. It will always will skew negative, because you're saying no to somebody. But again, the key is, do they feel like it was still positive and fair enough to want to try again, or just engage the business? Yeah, or not leave a scathing review.
No review.
The no review is better than the bad review.
And I think the thing that we forget sometimes, even in harder markets and more negativity, that there are candidates who have positive experiences that tell companies that, but don't ever get the job. So, and that's important. That's why we do the work we do. So
I love it. Well, I know we got to wrap up a couple of minutes. What is, an ERE veteran going to the conferences, SourceCon, everything else? What are you most looking forward to every time that you go to one of these conferences?
So the thing I've always loved about, and still do, about the ERE conferences is that it's super strategic for TA leaders as well as tactical for the recruiters. It is not. It's more of an intimate show and conference. and there's more of it's just got a friendly feel. And again, there's a lot of, there's actually not a lot of competition for recruiting conferences, standalone recruiting conferences out there. And there are different flavors for folks too, right? That they can do. But the ERE has really felt like just really a good place to network and socialize with peers and individuals that are in the space, whether they're leaders and or their teams, and always a great breadth of speakers and topics and sessions, and including sponsors too, of
Absolutely.
course, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the way. And again, there's just not a lot of quality standalone recruiting conferences that are out there anymore. So
No, I'm with you. Haven't been to a few this year. There is something kind of special about it. I think just the level of the quality of
yeah,
speakers and the conversation that's happening, but also mixed with a good time. It's something that doesn't take itself too seriously, which
right,
is always very refreshing.
yeah,
Uh,
totally.
well, it's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, you
Excited
too, Clark.
that Survale is sponsoring the
Yeah,
event, and you're on this side of things now,
yep,
and
yep, yep, yep.
appreciate you and the work that you're doing, because this is great. I'm learning, it's validating and learning new stuff as well. So cool to learn more about your work, and excited to see you in San Diego.
Appreciate that, Clark. Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, make sure to follow, subscribe, give us some ratings. Follow Kevin on LinkedIn if you haven't already. Checked out Survale if you haven't yet, because it's a great they're doing great work. And then obviously sign up for the ERE, either in person or virtual, however you can attend. If you're in person, make sure to say hi to me and Kevin. And if you're virtual, wave to us virtually.
Yep.
Until next time, y'all. Happy hunting.